Welcome to today's episode. My name is Gerard Stu from Vital Signs Consulting, and as the name suggests, we coach business owners to monitor the vital signs of their business so they can grow and increase their profits. And as promised, I'm going to ask you a few things again before we start. I want you to listen to the video more than once. And the reason for that is that you might miss something on the first time you've listened. You can also be in a different level of where you were 2, 3, 4 months ago, and you will take something different from the video. Always look for golden nuggets. If you listen to any podcast, look at any magazine, look for that golden nugget that you can take and implement in your business so it can grow. And write things down, because some people are more visual, they take more in. Write things down. Have a journal, have a book where you put all these ideas and all these podcasts in what you listen to. The aim that we do this channel is to educate you to be a business leader and to be an expert in your field. So often I hear people say, but I'm an expert. And then when you ask, what do you do differently than other people, they say, this is what I do differently, and then but that's exactly the same. We want you to be leaders in what you do. Like we said, if you want to be in the top 5% of successful business owners, you should be prepared to do what 95% of business owners don't do. That is the secret of success, is that you do that 5% more that 95% will not do. So what are you going to do after this talk today to be part of that 5%? I just want to quote, I've read the book, The One Thing, really interesting, and I think this is also a book that you need to get. We thought that we will do a book review, which we will do, but it is so big and so much that you actually need 6-7 weeks to review this book with all the good information in it. He said that the rare people who do become truly exceptional do so not because they're exceptional, they become amazing because they are obsessed with improvement. If everybody is exceptional, that will be the average. So not a lot of people want to put that little bit more effort in to be exceptional. And exceptional for them is to be obsessed with improvement. And that's where leaders comes in. Leaders keep on innovating and improving. Look what they have, see what they can change, improve, create, remove all the time. That is what it takes to become part of that 5% of the top business people. Robin Sharma, in his book, The 5 AM Club, also please, you need to get this book and read it. He has studied and mentored quite a bit of ultra-rich people over the years. And this is what he said they have. They are wildly curious. They are less scared of saying yes. They understand that failure is a gift. Now, if you go back to some of our things that we've talked about, is the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. They have a growth mindset. They are not scared to fail. They don't see failure as the end, but as where to start to make a success. They know that relationships are key. What did we say in the beginning? Success is built on 4 pillars: relationships, branding, marketing and sales. Here they say it again, that relationships. They agree that disruptors win. You can't be the same than others. You have to be the disruptor. If you don't innovate and think differently, you can't disrupt. We know of social media at the moment, how quickly disruptions comes into our lives. You can have $1 million idea today and tomorrow it's gone. So the quicker you implement, the more action you take, the bigger your chances for success. They focus less on cost and more on value. Okay? Remember we talked about a rich mindset and a broke mindset. This is a rich mindset. Lastly, he said, they invest in their growth. If you look at people like, for example, Richard Branson, all those people keep on educating themselves, reading a lot of books. Warren Buffett, they read books all the time. They educate them all the time. What do you as a business leader do to educate yourself? We said previously, if you educate yourself, you have better information, you can make better decisions, and from better decisions, you can make more money because you have the right menu and ingredients to make it work. Again, I say, what do you do to be part of the top 5% of business people? What are you prepared to do what 95% of business owners are not prepared to do? Do you have a growth mindset? Are you open for change? Are you okay with failure? Just a few of them. We must remember that all these people that are reading books from, all of them started as amateurs. Even the master started as a student. So how did they become masters? How did they become so successful? Is that they worked on themselves. They educated themselves. They got mentors to help them. They had open mindsets. They kept on doing things consistently. It is not, success is a science because there's a recipe for it. The thing comes in that we think we can put our own ingredients into our menu and into how we're going to do things. Why don't we just listen to all these successful people and implement these ideas? So one of the things that I thought I'll talk about today in leadership is the one thing. When I do coaching, one of the things that happens so often is people say, I feel so overwhelmed. There's so many things. It's a web page, it's names, it's registrations, what format do I have to put my business in? It's what do I say at network sessions? It is just totally overwhelming. So what the one thing said is that we need to move away from our to-do list to a success list. This is easier said than done. Basically what I say, the difference between your to-do list and your success list is that your to-do list is long. Your success list is short. Your to-do list just takes you in all directions, tears you apart, because you have to do 20 things in 6 hours, which is impossible. Where your success list is much more focused, and we talked about it before, get laser focused. Your to-do list is disorganized. Your success list is organized. So the one thing that we do, and actually happened over the weekend, is that we had 6 things on our list, no, like 8 things to do over the weekend. And I felt a bit overwhelmed because I knew that the day is going to be too short. Took the one thing, what is the one thing that I need to get done today to make a difference? By the end of Sunday afternoon, 6 o'clock, we have done 3 of the 6 things. The thing is that the 3 things were finalized and done. We didn't work on 6 things and nothing is done. By having our success list and doing one thing and finalize and finish it, we feel accomplished. By working on 6 things, don't do and complete anything, we felt we didn't accomplish anything. Mentally, it makes a big difference, and I need to work on one thing, get laser focused, finalize it, and get it done. So what the one thing say is that, well, there's a question actually. If we don't know which one is more important, they ask yourself this one question. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So basically, what is the one thing I can take from this list that if I do it, things will be easier afterwards, okay? And I don't have to go back to it again. For example, if I sit down now and do a policy and procedure that will save me time to go back all the time and solve the issues, let me do that. Have a policy and procedure to take to the staff and say, this is how we're going to do things from point A to point Z. If there's a problem, you come to me and we solve it, and we have one procedure that we don't have to go back each and every day like we've done over the last month. By doing that, you'll have more time to work on other things. Remember the 80-20 rule is normally that we spend 80% time on 20% things that's faulty. If we can solve that 20%, we will have much more time to do other things on our success list, not a to-do list, our success list. If you know your why and your beliefs, it will also be easier to do this one thing. Because this one thing I'm going to do, okay, is it in line with my why? Will it get me closer to my why? So it will stop you from doing things that don't get you closer to your goal. We spoke about it again. It takes 66 days to form a new habit. This might take some time for you to, as soon as you start with that to-do list, is to say, what is that one thing today I'm going to put on my success list? They've done a study at Siemens in Germany a few years back, where they allowed people to work for 2 hours a morning on a project of their choice, with no interference, no email, no anything, just to get laser focused. And the results were enormous. The outcomes were enormous. The results were enormous, because we get laser focused on one thing. Let's get into an habit, okay, of having a success list. Ask yourself the question, what is that one thing, if I do it now, that it will be easier afterwards? I hope that these little gold nuggets you will take and implement in your business. It's no use just listening and not doing anything. The more action you take, the more successful you'll be. This is where we say goodbye to our YouTube listeners. If you think that anybody can find benefit from this by listening and make a difference in their business, please share with them. And it's good also to discuss with them what you've just heard and learned. If you want to become part of our Worldwide Business Club members, just go to www.patreon.com/Vital Signs Consulting and become part of our leader group that wants to make business owners leaders in their field, where we can listen to successful people in business, take that gold nuggets and implement in your business. So our members, please stay tuned for our interview after the break.
Welcome to the Worldwide Business Club. I'm Kathleen Stoop, your host, and today we're looking at another book review. The book that Gerard and I have recently read is called The One Thing by Gary Keller. It's a fantastic book in that it's really a book about how-to. One of the things that you'll hear Gerard talk about a lot is using laser focus. And what this book really helps you do is it teaches you a system to develop that focus. A lot of us are really good at drawing up to-do lists, and often those to-do lists carry over from day to day, sometimes week to week. And what Gary recommends in this book is that you actually create a success list. It's an easy to read book, and what I really love about it, because I only get to spend about 20 minutes a day reading, is that it's so well written and so well organized that you can pick it up and just start again where you left off, and it's not hard to remember what you read. Also, you've got some great bullet points at the end of each chapter to remind you of the important bits. The book's divided into 3 parts, and there's so much information packed into the book that I thought what we'll do today is really just review the first part. And the first part is all about lies. And essentially what this is looking at some myths that we have commonplace taken to be true, where actually Gary shows us that they're lies that not only deceive us, but can actually derail us. He talks about 6 different lies, but I thought I'd share with you the 3 that really resonate with me. So one of the lies he talks about is the myth of multitasking. We joke often that women are great multitaskers and men are really not good at doing more than one thing at a time. But in truth, it's something that I've never been able to do, and I've often felt guilty that as a woman, I just don't seem to be able to multitask. It's something that we're told we should strive towards. In fact, there's some job advertisements you might have seen that even listed as one of the characteristics they're looking for in an employee. But it turns out that multitasking is a myth. The term multitasking was actually initially applied to computers, where you had a single computer being used by different programs. That term was then used and reflected on human beings, where you've got one human being trying to do numerous tasks. And what neuroscience tells us is that that's simply not possible. We can really only give our full attention to one task at a time. Research tells us that if you're really trying to do more than one thing at a time, all you're really doing is none of them very well at all. And so this was a huge relief to me to realize it's not something I have to strive for. It's actually okay to give your focus and attention to one task at a time. And this book is going to help you figure out which is the most important one to do. The other thing that was really interesting is he talks about willpower. Now, I've always thought that willpower and self-discipline is either something you have or you don't. But it turns out that willpower is actually a little bit like a muscle. He uses a great example of comparing willpower to the battery bars on your mobile phone. In the morning when your phone is fully charged, you've got a whole lot of power for the day, but as the day wears on, you lose battery power, and your willpower is exactly the same. That willpower might be fully charged in the morning and you can call on it, but towards the end of the day, you're actually starting to lose charge and you're less likely to be self-disciplined. And for all you women out there who, like myself, might struggle with the munchies at night and eating unhealthy sugary treats after dinner, it's because your willpower is depleted. And once you understand that your willpower can be depleted, it suddenly becomes easier to understand why it's really important to take regular breaks during the day, and also why what you eat to fuel your body is incredibly important. There's a lovely example of research in this book where they had a look at judges and how likely they were to give people parole based on the time of day and on when they took their breaks. And there was an absolute correlation between them being a lot more lenient in the morning when they had a lot of energy, and by the afternoon where willpower's perhaps starting to deplete, they were less likely to give people parole because it meant that they had to think a lot harder. So there's some really good lessons in there on willpower. The last one I'd like to share with you is this desire we have to achieve work-life balance. It's something that our clients talk about a lot, and it's something that can create actually quite a bit of stress trying to get this work-life balance right. And one of the points Gary makes is that work-life balance assumes that you're really trying to keep everything equally balanced in the middle. But the truth is that not much action really happens in the middle. It's often at the extremes where you are achieving your goals. And so instead of trying to keep this careful balance, what you need to learn to do is to counterbalance. So you might go through a patch at work where you're having to put in extra hours to get a project finished or to meet a deadline. And so you actually go out of balance. The important thing is to counterbalance, so past the middle, back to family life, to make sure that you counterbalance equally and that you're paying attention to the important things in life. But expecting to have this perfect balance between the two is just not possible at all times. So it's a great book. I'd really encourage you to get it. For those of you, depending on which of our programs you've signed up to, you may even be eligible to get a copy of the book. We'll meet again in another episode, and we'll have a look at part 2 and 3 of the book.
Well, I just listened to your part for the Worldwide Business Club members, Kathleen. What a fascinating book The One Thing is. For someone who reads a lot and you come across a book like this, what do you think was the striking difference from yourself that really attracted you to this particular book over the other fantastic books that you've read?
I was looking for a book that would really help me focus. You read so many books that tell you how important it is to focus. So I understood what I needed to do. I even understood why I needed to do it. But to understand how to actually get that focus, this is an incredibly practical book. A lot of books do concentrate on what and why, but they don't always tell you, all right, so how do I actually do that? What does that look like in my daily activities? And the one thing is really a how-to practical book.
One thing that strikes me when I was listening to you talk about this book, and especially when you talked about multitasking and you talked about the balance, and I was thinking, because I'm probably a bit privileged of knowing the complexity of your own life with yourself and Gerard, you've got property for sale, you've got new businesses you're opening up, you have your consulting practice, and you have your family life. When it was saying things get out of balance, you go, yeah, that's us. And what's the lesson about? How did you use that lesson when you said if it goes out of balance one way, make sure you counteract it in the other? How have you and Gerard managed to use that as a practical tool?
I think sometimes you feel like you're having to create that balance each day at a time, and that balance always has to look the same. But the reality is there are going to be times where you have to take time out of your family life and put it into the business to help the business grow. And there are going to be times where you may need to take time out of the business to attend family functions. So this idea of not always trying to keep this balance, the idea that it is going to go out of balance at times, that was really a refreshing perspective. It was almost giving myself permission to go, it's okay, it's going to feel messy, it's going to feel like it's out of balance, but I know that I just need to counterbalance now. So it's not this fine balancing act all the time, it's simply acknowledging why it's out of balance, having an awareness that it's out of balance, and knowing what to do to bring that balance back.
I'm actually smiling because I was thinking the other one that you talked about there was the multitasking. And I think every guy on the planet go, women can multitask and guys can't.
No, we can't.
And when you read that, I thought it was quite refreshing. He was saying, and if I heard you correctly, he's saying if you're multitasking, you're just not doing anything well.
Absolutely. So he gives a great example in the book of things that we can do simultaneously, and the things that we can do simultaneously are things that require energy from different parts of the brain. So for example, you and I could be driving and just having a pleasant chat, but as soon as I was in an area I was unfamiliar with, I'd have to concentrate more on the driving and I'd have to ask you to be quiet.
Yes.
Or if I wanted to have a really important conversation, I'd probably say, well, wait until I stop so I can give you my full attention. So you know, those two things are being controlled by very different parts of the brain, but still, when we need to put in a lot of energy, a lot of brain power, the brain can really only do one thing in a focused way at a time.
Is that why we see some of the high-end executives and you open up their diaries, and a lot of them still use manual diaries as well as
yes.
and because they physically write them. But there are all these colour codes on them, like they go, that's what I'm doing right there. And it's like they've put everything into boxes almost.
Yeah, it's that absolute focus. And it's so that you can devote your entire attention to just that one thing. And quite interestingly, I was reading another article just about the difference between sort of handwriting and using your computer. Again, very different process, and there's good research showing that by actually handwriting something, it's forcing you to process it in a different way, and it improves your ability to remember it. So it makes sense that a lot of the high-flying people, you think of Richard Branson, notebook, it actually helps you process and remember.
I've heard of people going to, like you said, Branson, they've gone to Branson's island, I think it's Necker Island, and done their workshops with him. And his first thing is, where's your notebook and your pen?
Yes.
It's like people going, I've got my iPad. Not acceptable.
No, not the same process.
Yeah. Do you think when we talk multitasking, and some people feel like they may be failing if they can't, but really it's an actual, a real problem to actually even attempt it. We should be educating people not to do that.
Yeah, if you look at neuroscience, absolutely. So some people are better at switching attention than other people. So there's some tasks where we can certainly switch our attention. But absolutely, if there's an important thing that you need to get done, it's important to understand that you actually need to be able to focus on just one thing. They had a really interesting study in the book. I don't remember all the details, but essentially they had a look at college students who felt that they were really good at multitasking, and college students who professed, like myself, to not be able to multitask. And actually what they found when they looked at their ability to do various tasks, obviously the students who couldn't multitask just did one task at a time within a particular time frame. Those who thought they could did numerous. And the people who weren't multitasking, who were focusing, outperformed the multitaskers on every single measure.
So we could be deluding ourselves if we multitask.
We could be deluding ourselves, because what we're doing is just not a great job. We're getting stuff done, but not doing a great job at any of it.
And the other thing you mentioned in that summary is, and this is a particular part you're doing in this book, and it is actual packed. It's called The One Thing, but it is just packed with all this knowledge. But it says about a balanced life. Now, there's going to be a lot of business people out there who just say, but Kathleen, that just seems like an impossibility. But you have a busy life, and you seem to have a fair grasp on the balance. What would you say to them?
I'd say reading a book like this, I think, firstly puts things into perspective. And I think what I've learned through my own journey of self-development is that there is no such thing as a perfect business, or being a perfect wife, or being a perfect mom. It's taking that pressure off yourself that's really the first step towards achieving some sort of balance, because in the beginning, you're taking on things that maybe other people won't. People are often critical of, why would you want your own business? Just go out and get a great job. So you almost feel like there's a lot at stake, and you feel pressure to be perfect at everything that you do and to have everything succeed the first time. And that becomes really difficult when it comes to trying to do everything else that you need to do as well. So just acknowledging that there's no such thing as the perfect business.
Do you think a book like this, and especially when you're a member of a club like yours and people get to disseminate it, pull it all apart, do you think it really helps people get better results faster than they would if they kind of go, well, I don't need books like that. That book will take me half an hour. I'll have to watch this show for 15 minutes. It takes too much time out of my day.
I know for me, we've been doing this for a while, and as you know, I've just started another business. And whenever you're starting something that you really know very little about, it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. And I have found I'm using a lot of the things I've read in this book just to really provide structure. So, I've got 20 things to do today. They all feel equally important. What's the one thing I can do today that if I get that done, everything else is going to be easier? Or it might be unnecessary to do some of those other things. So it actually forces you to just calm down, sit and look at your list with that absolute focus. I'm a great list maker, and that causes a huge amount of stress. Because I also don't have a great ability to estimate the number of things I can get done on a list. So having this focus of, all right, well, if I only get one thing done today, what is it going to be? And is that the most important thing? Has made a huge difference already.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Worth the 20 minutes that it took to read that chapter.
And definitely worth the time to join you on the Worldwide Business Club.
Absolutely.
Kathleen, thanks for staying back for some extra questions.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Michael.